Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. Now before we get into it, I'd just like to inform you about a new website selling quality current and retro Spurs jerseys, okjersey.com. They sell all current and retro Tottenham Hotspur shirts in all sizes. They sell the current fan and player versions as well as the 80s and 90s retro shirts, including my very favourite, the 1991 FA Cup final shirt. You can order very easily from okjersey.com, and if you use the code Chris, you will receive an 8% discount off your final order. You can also use the QR code on the top left of your screen. And by the way, they also have some training wear here and the 25-26 colour special edition jersey. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat Podcast. In this edition, we'll be previewing the huge game on Saturday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 5:30pm kickoff as Spurs take on Liverpool. Now, it's 11th v 7th in the Premier League table. Spurs currently 6 points away from the top four, and we're also 6 points above 17th, where we finished last season under former boss Ange Postecoglou. Now, in this edition, we will be getting the views from the guests and the channel regulars. We will also hear from Arnie Slot and Thomas Frank ahead of this huge game on Saturday. We will go through the many facts and stats as well, looking forward to the big match. And this is our last home game of 2025. Now, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by channel regular Richard Whitehead, MBE. Rich, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, always pleased to be on the podcast. It's great to be with Gareth and Terry. As always, we always have a bit of a laugh, loads of great chat, and obviously discussing the beloved Spurs and the ups and downs, and hopefully we can kind of see some hope and aspirations for the future. Let's stay positive a little
Rich,
bit.
Before we get into it and before we talk to the other guests, tell me what a busy year that you have had, because you've just completed 100 marathons. That is some going. Just talk to us about how your year has been.
Yeah, well, obviously, as you know, I've been all over the world, like away from home for about 3.5 months in total. 20 marathons, furthest east Sydney, furthest west Vancouver, and lots of races in between. Some months like April, I did 5 back-to-back marathons, and 14 of them under 3 hours. So it's been really busy, kind of looking at the environment, the sporting environment for runners, but also kind of my own personal kind of success of running them as fast as I can. And it's been fantastic. I've always wanted to run one marathon, never mind 100. And this year I was lucky enough, with a lot of support, being able to complete 100 marathons, which is crazy. And obviously, as you can see in the background, I wear prosthetics. Those are the prosthetics that I actually wear. And those prosthetics are something that I rely on to actually get to the start to the finish. And without that kind of support, it's inevitable that I won't be successful. And the reason why I've just mentioned that is because I'm a great advocate that not just us four, but all the fans really get behind the team, because your support really does mean a massive difference to success. I've had it this year with my success, and I think it's we need to really change the dial and support the team moving forwards.
Yeah. Fantastic work, Rich, and many congratulations. And we look forward to seeing you run the next 100.
Next one.
Also back with us is channel regular Terry Kim, all the way from New York. Good afternoon, Terry. How are you?
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be on with you guys. It's a little hard to follow that from Richard as an introduction. So, but it's been great. It's I've had a little time off here for the holidays, and looking forward to Christmas and the New Year coming up. And it's really nice to be on before the game when we still have a modicum of hope, right? Going into the game. But I agree with Richard. Let's get behind the team. Let's be positive today. So. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. Also joining us is channel regular Gareth McGuinness in Ireland. Gareth, how are you?
All good, Chris. It's funny Richard's on there. You speak about marathons, sport and Tottenham Hotspur is a bit like a marathon at the minute. We're coming up to that 13-mile post, and I have to say it's been a massive struggle. So I don't know what Richard's experience is. If you struggle in the first 13, what's the second 13 going to be like? So I'm hoping for a shot in the arm. I'm a bit of a sprint finish. But at the minute, Chris, I think one of the comments here says I'm a bit depressed looking. I'd love to see how the rest of the fans look at the minute, because it's been pretty bleak. But look, as Terry says, it's a preview show. We can be a little bit positive, hopefully, and hopefully give people something they cheer about this weekend, because, as Richard said, the fans are in need of something. I'm a big fan of what Richard's saying there, that the fans need to get behind the team, but the team need to give the fans something to get behind, because at the minute it's obviously it's a bit difficult. So let's hope it's a positive weekend, and I promise if we do one, I'll be a bit more positive next week when I'm on.
Gareth, it feels like an ultra marathon to me.
Yeah. Richard, I'm going to start the show with you. I want to get your thoughts and feelings right now on being a Spurs fan. What have you made of the season so far? Because, as I said in the intro, we're 6 points away from the top four. We're 6 points above 17th, where we finished last season. Thomas Frank has come out and said this is not a quick fix. He came out and said that after the 3-0 defeat away at Forest on Sunday, where, of course, we only had one shot on target. This is not the first time this season where I've said that stat, that we've only had one shot on target, and we've lacked creativity in so many games this season. But the week before the Forest game, it was a very positive week. Where, of course, we beat Brentford 2-0 and we beat Slavia Prague 3-0, both at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And it is very fair to say in both those games, we could have scored a hatful. We should and could have scored a lot more goals. So, you saw a different Tottenham. It was an entertaining Tottenham, and we haven't really seen that version a lot this season. What do you make of the Forest game, and how are you feeling right now towards Spurs and the manager?
Well, one thing is that I'm from Nottingham.
I know.
So this week's been quite tough with all the Forest fans. And obviously I was there with you last season at the Forest game, and that was tough as well. The Forest result really did sum up the season. I think a lot of toothless play. I think some of the tactics were questionable. I think the players looked tired. Looked like they didn't have a lot of imagination. And here's my lad coming in now. Say hello. You all right, Andrew? Andrew, just go downstairs while I'm on the podcast. See, this is always what happens when the two kids come in when Spurs are playing. And say hello. Hello. It has been a real struggle. And Andrew, I know you're playing around with me now, a little monkey. And I think as a Spurs fan, you look at the season as a whole, and you really kind of think, where are the positives? And are the positives been overshadowed by a lot of the negative team play, a lot of the negative atmosphere in the stadium, but also the lack of players coming out and actually really inspiring the fans. I think that's something that has really been apparent, that at the start of the year, and then we had the changes with Levy, and then this newfound kind of communication with the board, and then all of a sudden, we start the season with this new hope, and it's been backwards since then. I'm a massive Spurs fan. Over the last 3 or 4 seasons, I've watched probably every minute of the games. This season, I don't know what it is. And even when we were getting hammered under Ange, I was watching I was saying, look, we've got hope here. But under Thomas Frank, I think in some of the games, I've just not seen it. I've just not seen the players actually giving everything for the cause, kind of really appreciating what the fans think of wearing the Spurs shirt. I've not seen it. I don't know about you boys, but it's been a real frustration and a hard watch. You mentioned 2 of the games there, Chris, but to be honest, in the European game, we could have also shipped a shed load of goals.
Yeah. Terry, let's come to you. I just want to read a couple of comments out here and get your reaction. Chris Sutton on BBC 5 Live on Thomas Frank and the Spurs fans. He says, it was always going to be difficult for Thomas Frank, but I do think he looks strained and tense. Some Tottenham fans have already judged him, and that is deeply unfair. It was always going to be a long-term, turning Tottenham around, and there needs to be a lot of patience. There is an expectation from fans. They think they are better than they actually are, and they should be further along. I'm not trying to fall out with Tottenham fans, but I don't think they realise how long these things take. And former Tottenham Hotspur star Jermaine Jenas on Tottenham and the Liverpool game, and Thomas Frank, he said, I think this game is huge. I think the manager could be under pressure. I think when there's been no real consistency with the lineups and the tactics, it's difficult to predict how players are going to perform. I want to see a bit of improvement in that forward area too. Yes, there are injuries at the football club, but they have still got some decent players there. This is a must-win game for Thomas Frank. Terry, I just want your take on what do you agree with, what do you disagree with there?
I agree with almost everything that both Chris and Jermaine Jenas have said. I would say that Thomas Frank definitely, even in the press conference today, he's definitely not as ebullient as he's been in the past. I mean, you can almost see him kind of bracing himself for some of the questions because he knows the types of questions that are going to come. In terms of being unfair, that's probably the only point that I disagree with, just because I think that's the expectation, and any coach coming in needs to know that at a club as big as Tottenham with this many reporters, that he's going to be peppered with the same questions again and again. He's going to be peppered with questions that question if players are behind him, his tactics. I mean, every single move is scrutinized. And I think he knew, or he expected that to happen, but he seems to kind of have that same kind of look that Mourinho got, that Conte got, that Postecoglou got when they just get really, really tired of these multiple press conferences answering the same questions again and again. I don't think, like Jermaine Jenas said, that he could be in trouble if this game goes poorly. The more and more I think about it, I really don't think he's in trouble, nor do I think he should be. So I would say, like, preface this with, I would say I'm definitely more on the patient side. I didn't want Mourinho to go. I didn't want Pochettino to go. I didn't want Conte to go. I didn't want Ange to go. The only one I would have agreed with was probably was Nuno at the time. But I think there's three reasons, or kind of three things that Thomas Frank has going for him. One, I think Vinay Venkatesham, I don't think someone like that gets into that position without having more of a long-term view and the ability to kind of see things at a more of a macro level. I mean, we aren't even half a season in here. I think there's too many compelling arguments of clubs who have been rewarded for sticking with coaches who have had a rough start, whether that was Liverpool with Klopp, Arsenal with Arteta. I mean, that was almost 3 years of kind of a rough start for Arsenal and Arteta. And you could even make the argument that Amorim and Man United are looking better. I mean, you expected him to be fired almost every week last season and in the beginning of this season as well. So I think that's one reason that they're going to have a long-term view. Two, I think there's just a general recognition that this lack of attack, the loss of Solanke, Kulusevski, Madison, and really Son as well, it can't be understated. So I think you have to give him credit for that, or let him use that as an excuse, which I don't think he's doing, but I think we should let him.
I definitely appreciate what you're saying there, Terry, but
yeah.
like, it's been terrible. Like,
I know, but
it's been like,
I was going to get to that. Yeah.
And I think the manager shouldn't get the majority of the stick. The players, like, I'm into like body language and kind of, like I've always said, when Sonny played his best football, he was on his honkers, on his knees, kind of giving everything for the cause. You watch those results where like the one at Forest, how many players gave everything? Some of them, like, threw the toys out the pram early, whether it was coming off. You come off, somebody comes on, they give everything. And I'm not seeing that kind of commitment. That's what's really frustrating. And it's not just Thomas Frank's fault. I think there's something going on environmentally that's not in, whether it's the players don't understand the tactics, they don't understand the expectations. But I want to see that every game they're giving it a go, not just the ones that they think they can win.
Terry, sorry, Terry. I was just going to say that it now, these defeats, it just now feels normal, and the boos in the Tottenham Stadium, it feels normal, and it was such a refreshing surprise to then see when we'd actually won a game against Brentford, the players were actually applauded off at halftime. They were applauded off at full time, which was great scenes. I absolutely loved that. Smiling all the way through it, and then for the first time this season, the team were actually booed off, from the away end at Nottingham Forest. What positives do you see? Because Gareth and I did a fan show the other night, 4.5 hours, I think it was, and we were asking every single Spurs fan that came on, what are the positives? What are the positives? Because when you look at all of the stats compared to last season, and I get all of the injuries, Ange Postecoglou had a lot of injuries last season as well, and you would expect improvements. And when you do see managers going into football clubs week by week or month by month, you do see improvements. You do see things changing. What are the main changes that you've seen under Thomas Frank?
The positives are tough because it's like I try to hold on to Brentford, to Everton, to Leeds away, and Man City, and that's about it. But if you look at the flip side of that, the negatives and the really, really, really awful performances have far outweighed that. I think the biggest surprise of this season is that I think going in, everyone had said that we thought that with Thomas Frank, the ceiling maybe wouldn't be as high as with Postecoglou, but at least the floor would be higher. And it's crazy that the floor has actually been lower, and we don't actually know what the actual lowest point is. That's been the biggest surprise in this. So I agree with you, Richard, in that kind of the players' mentality and the attitude, in that it's so inconsistent week to week. I have never been jealous of a team for having Sean Dyche as a coach until last week, kind of seeing how the players were running for him. And it kind of made me wonder in the back of my head, is that the type of coach that would motivate this group of players? Like the loud barker, like someone who's really going to get on you. It made me question whether maybe that's the type of person that we need. But again, if we switch, especially this quickly, we're just in this constant cycle, this vicious cycle of starting over, new coaches with a mishmash, a smorgasbord of players that may or may not fit their systems. And it would seem like just starting over again and again. I mean, you look at the players now who are out of favor. But I mean, Brennan Johnson, we've spent 45 million on Brennan Johnson. Now he's completely out of favor. Richarlison, we spent, I think, around another 45 million or so. I mean, he was Conte's guy two times ago and 2 coaches ago. He's really out of favor with the fans. I guess he's not out of favor with Frank. Who's to say that the next coach wouldn't come in and all of a sudden, like someone like Kudus wouldn't fit his system and he would be out of favor and they'd be starting over again and looking for another winger, another attacker. I'm kind of just making some excuses here. I don't really have a great solution. I wish I had more positives to throw out there, other than just trying to preach patience and seeing the process through. I don't think half of a season is enough to see the process through.
Yeah, with what I just said there, I would love this to work under Thomas Frank. I want it to work under Thomas Frank. I want to see more entertaining football. I certainly want to see shots on goal, especially in 45-minute spells, in whole halves of games. We've got to see more creativity. And to be honest with you, Terry, I expected Thomas Frank to get the best out of players and improve players. Yes, even by Christmas, I would have expected to see improvements in certain areas, in certain players, and even set pieces. The whole long throw process, we haven't actually scored from one yet. The set pieces overall, have they been better than last season? Perhaps a little bit, but when you look at all of the other stats, I don't really see us moving on. Yes, Thomas Frank's had one transfer window, but he did bring players in. And it's an interesting one as well with Brennan Johnson. I know we'll talk about him later, but with Johnson, he's one of the players that Thomas Frank wanted to buy at Brentford. You would think that he would be working with him and improving his game. And that is a big surprise to me, actually. Gareth, before we come to you, I'm going to play the first Thomas Frank clip. And this is where he was asked in the press conference on Friday, does he feel supported by the football club right now?
And in terms of your position at the club, are you feeling supported by the board? Have you had conversations this week?
I feel supported. I've done that the whole time, and as I said, also after the game, that hadn't changed my mind. This is not a quick fix. This will take time. That's not the same that we're not going to do everything we can to beat Liverpool, and believe we have a good chance of doing that. This is something where we are building, I said it many times. We of course, first and foremost, the most critical of myself. So that's one thing. But I think it's fair to say that we are a lot of people in it that need to perform well together, with me in charge, of course, and taking the right decisions.
Gareth, let me come to you on this, because at the start of the season, when Daniel Levy was Tottenham chairman, he came out and said, we want to be fighting on all fronts. We want to be winning more trophies. The players have come out and said, we want to win more trophies. In the last 48 hours, Bentancur and Romero, of course, Captain Romero, have come out and said, we want to win more trophies, and we want to win a trophy this season as well. And then Thomas Frank, twice in a week, has turned around and said, this is not a quick fix. What message are you getting from the football club, and what did you make of those comments from Frank?
It's difficult to know how the club are feeling of how it's actually going under Thomas Frank, because we haven't, they're not going to publicly come out and back him, because one, I think that's a sign of weakness if they have to come out and back him, that it's not going well, and that's going against the majority of how fans are feeling. Is Vinay and Daniel Levy, we don't know how much, it was Daniel Levy's last managerial appointment, but, you kind of feel that Daniel Levy, because we done that interview with Simon Jordan, didn't they, last year, that you kind of felt that Daniel Levy this was planned in a way. He was going to be stepping down. So how much of an influence he had? I spoke to my dad last night. Me and him hadn't seen him for a week. He was working, and he's a big Spurs fan as well. And we sat down and we looked at, you think about Ange Postecoglou, how he got appointed. There was a big connection there with Scott Munn. And has there been the same connection here with Johan Langer? The Danish connection. Is that why Thomas Frank was appointed? They says there was a rigorous recruitment program, but Thomas Frank was only really the only name on the picture, really. There was semi-links to our coaches, but it felt very early on that Thomas Frank was going to be the Tottenham manager. So I would love to be able to sit on like a documentary style, which we'll never get access to, is how Thomas Frank was selected, who was on the running, and why was he picked over ours. I mean, the one thing that really worries me, Chris, is that this is a manager who was interviewed for Man United and interviewed for Chelsea and deemed that he wasn't the right fit. So if you think about the managers recently that have been employed at these clubs, they haven't exactly been successful. Pochettino went in there for one season. There was signs towards the end of that first season that Pochettino was getting Chelsea going. I think they won their last 6 or 7 Premier League games, but ultimately there was a disagreement between the board and Poch, so he left. Man United have had Erik ten Hag. I believe he was interviewed for the Spurs job, and Spurs didn't fancy him. Ruben Amorim didn't really have any Premier League experience, but they deemed that he was a better fit than Thomas Frank. So that worried me from the start when Thomas Frank was picked. What did Man United and Chelsea see that Spurs have? There's been a lot of different managers selected at Tottenham over the last few years that haven't really worked out. And that transfers to the recruitment team on the playing side. How many of them have been hits in the last 3 or 4 seasons? So for me, there's a massive issue with recruitment. I don't know what the Tottenham identity is anymore. We've went from, Pochettino, De Mourinho and Conte and Nuno, then we've went to Ange, now we're back with Thomas Frank. There's no real similarities between Thomas Frank and Ange in any way in terms of their personality, in terms of their playing style. They're complete polar opposites. And whilst there was flaws under Ange's system, I think that was evident that he didn't really have a plan B, or, we were conceding too many goals, and he didn't really adapt the player availability in terms of he was missing his best players. He still believed in playing that way. But I still think that Ange had put certain things in place that another manager could have kicked on. We had got our identity back in terms of being the identity that we want, which is being on the front foot, being brave and attacking. So I think they go down the route of a completely different manager was an oversight. I don't think that was the right way to go. That's not to say that's Thomas Frank's fault. This is a big opportunity for a manager at Brentford to come to a bigger club. Why should he refuse that opportunity? But from watching these press conferences, and I've listened to Richard and Terry, and I think they made some fantastic points, and they were both kind of on different wavelengths, but I think they made some really good points individually. Terry mentioned about his press conference there. I don't think, Chris, that he has prepared himself for how much scrutiny you're under as a Tottenham manager. This is a very, very big football club. I was listening to Paul Merson on the Premier League Friday show there the last couple of hours talking, and then they were talking about the Tottenham-Liverpool game, and he was saying, this is a fan base that, demand a lot. This is a massive football club. They won the Europa League last season, and Paul Merson's an Arsenal and Chelsea kind of, he's a lover of those clubs, and so for him to sit there and say that Tottenham deserve better, and he's coming out, he says, I think he's wrong to criticise the fans, and I know we'll come on to speak about that, but I think he says he was at a game where Brentford were beaten by Bournemouth, and the players done a lap of appreciation at the end, and the fans clapped them off. This is a very, very different environment. If you don't win games at this club, and if you don't win them at least trying to be brave, you're under massive pressure, and there doesn't be any real connection there at the moment between the fans and the fans and the players and the manager. I don't believe there's a strong connection between the manager and the players, and that's an even bigger worry. Seeing how the players have reacted with a manager after a game, that wasn't really happening last season on the rounds. Despite the defeats, there seemed to be a general feeling that the injuries were holding this group back. I'm not seeing any positives at the minute that when players do come back, this is going to improve. There doesn't look to be a great harmony in that dressing room at the minute. And you can speak about previous managers and previous recruitments and, the environment, but it's up to the manager to create that winning environment, and that environment the players enjoy. I'm not particularly inspired by Thomas Frank's press conferences, so I don't really know how the players are reacting to the training and the team talks. There seems to be a lot of chopping and changing, and that's been something that's been consistent throughout Thomas Frank's reign, and I think that creates confusion. I don't believe the players have a clear idea of what they're supposed to be doing on the pitch, and that can only lie at the responsibility of Thomas Frank and his team. So that is if we're picking up on that, the media is picking up on that, and it's a real struggle at the minute to pick out any positives in the last few months. We're talking about maybe the odd game here and there. That can't be accepted at a top club. And whilst Terry is right about managers needing time, Mikel Arteta, when he took over at Arsenal, his first year and a half was behind closed doors. I don't think he probably would have survived that if fans were in the stadium. They were 15th at Christmas. Only if there was no fans, I think he would have been under huge pressure in that stadium to keep his job. Jurgen Klopp, yes, it was a difficult start, but he was putting that style in play in progress, and there were certain games where I think they beat Man City 4-1 in his first season away, where they played that Jurgen Klopp gegenpress, and it was clear that if he got the right players, plus as well, Jurgen Klopp had a pedigree at Dortmund, where he had, we haven't got that with Thomas Frank. He's never managed in the Champions League. He's managed a club and this is a very rare thing for a manager, Chris. I don't think he's ever been under any pressure in his whole time at Brentford since they got promoted. They've been very happy with him. And if they lost games, it wasn't really, no real criticism went on to the manager because they kind of knew their place in the food chain. Whereas this is a completely different environment. And I think he's misjudged this environment. A lot of press conferences talking about how good the opposition are, about how long this is going to take. That's fine, saying it's not going to be a quick fix, but there needs to be some sign of positives or something to get behind that, where are we going to be this time next year? I mean, if these next few games don't improve, Chris, it's not just the results. If the performances are consistent to how they were against Nottingham, if it's another Nottingham Forest tomorrow or another Chelsea, and that's a repeat of Crystal Palace and then Brentford, I don't see how he can stay in his job. We'll be floating on the edges of the bottom three with all these damning stats of a team that really doesn't look like they can score a goal at the minute unless there's a freak incident like a penalty, or Richarlison chips the goalkeeper from the halfway line, or Xavi Simons goes on a brilliant burst and run through the middle of the pitch. There's no patterns of play, and the fans aren't going to accept this much longer, Chris. I mean, they're starting to vote with their feet, and the club will take notice of that. If we're struggling to sell out games, there's a clear problem with what's being put on the pitch, because yes, we're Tottenham Hotspur, but I don't think our expectations are that high at the moment. I think the fans just want to see some signs of, this process can work if the manager gets backed, because we're seeing little signs here, but we're not seeing any signs other than negative signs. So for me at the minute, I am disgruntled and concerned about the direction we're going on under Thomas Frank.
Do you know the interesting thing you said there, Gareth, that I agree with? And I agree with a lot of what you said, but you've mentioned moments by individual players, not by a team. You didn't mention once, like, it was a great team performance. And that's what we've not seen. We've not seen great team performances at all. We've seen sparks of brilliance. Clearly, we've got individuals. Individuals don't win you games. Teams win you games. And that's what we've definitely not had this season.
Yeah, Gareth, what you said about the relationship with the players, or the supposed, the tenuous relationship with the players, I think that's a great point. Honestly, more so than anything, even more so than the fan reaction and the seats, I think that's the one variable that could seriously put Thomas Frank's job in jeopardy. If the players aren't behind him, and you see kind of some of that tension there. I mean, the fact that he didn't know that Mickey Van de Ven had done that interview, even though there was nothing bad about him in there, the relationship there doesn't seem to be strong. I think that's the one thing that could put it over the top for Frank.
Rich, I'll come to you in a second. I'm just going to play another Thomas Frank clip now. He was asked the question in the press conference, what are the main missing elements in his team?
And finally, from me, you talk about building over the long term. What do you identify as the main missing elements in this team at the moment?
I don't know if there's one main thing, but there's no doubt that we can't run away that we need to create a bit more, and that's both principles and good training. And it's been nice to have finally to have a good training week where we could actually focus a lot on that. So that definitely helps, but also. How can you say? It's said a few times. I think we have a few good players out with a lot of goals and assists in them, and we have a very good talented group of players that haven't produced the same numbers yet. So that's part of it as well.
Thank you, Thomas. Best of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Rich, of course, he's mentioned about the creative players being out. Of course, Heung-min Son left for LAFC as well. When you take the goals and assists out of these creative players, of course, you are going to miss that heavily. And of course, you and I smiled at the same time when he said, we need to create more. We do need to be a lot more creative. What have you made of our attacking play this season? And like Gareth said, Gareth believes that even when these key players, Dominic Solanke, Kulusevski, James Maddison come back, he doesn't believe that there's going to be any difference at all. Do you?
Well, obviously, he's clearly alluded to the players that are out or have moved on, but he has obviously put players into those positions. Obviously, Simmons, who has took a bit of time adapting to the speed and the physicality of the Premier League, as well as Kudus, who shone the first couple of games, but has really been, I think he's been kind of found out. If he looks very frustrated, you look at, again, body language, he looks very frustrated, trying to do too much on his own. And that's when you kind of think, when players are trying to navigate games on their own away from a team environment, that's when obviously fans find that very frustrating, but also the team itself does as well. Do I think, obviously, these players coming back in? I think, obviously, at the moment, with how the team's playing, they'd all go straight back in the team, clearly. They bring different attributes as well as Premier League experience that we've seen before. But again, these players have now been out for a long time and they'll need time to be reintegrated within the squad, reintegrated within the team, and that's not going to be a quick fix. He's not very motivating, is he? Even in those interviews, you kind of fall asleep, and you can't, because we've heard the same bullshit all the time. It's quite hard to listen to that with some enthusiasm that things are going to change. obviously he said that we've got some talented players within the group. I'm like, that's great. At least he said one positive thing anyway. It needs to be more positive. It needs to give us more solutions to the problems that we're seeing and be completely honest, because the fans, like Terry alluded to earlier, all the data that we're getting now at the games is putting managers such as Tom Frank under so much pressure if things go wrong, especially around lack of attacking opportunities created. And then when he comes into the interview like that and he's put under pressure, he seems to have the same kind of blasé approach instead of going, actually, we as a group of players really appreciate that result isn't what the fans expect, isn't what I expect or the team expects. And this is how we're going to improve things. We're going to work hard in the week. We're going to put things in place to be able to come out in the next game against Liverpool and give it a go.
Richard, sorry, just another manager that's been under pressure over the last years, Ruben Amorim. But I find his press conferences quite refreshing, that he's brutally honest with the media. He says United haven't been good enough. We haven't been good enough. We're going to fix it. He comes out with that defeatist, pushing it back. We're going to fix it. And you are starting to see little signs with United that it is fixing, but he doesn't pepper over the cracks. He says it how it is, whereas we're getting bullshitted and being told that if we concede a couple of shots from outside the box, we low XG, that's really, really good. But he's not talking about the other end of the pitch when we're creating nothing. So I find it very refreshing when Amorim comes out and calls it how it is, whereas Thomas Frank's making this out to be just a small bump in the road, but we're seeing massive gaping holes with what's going on.
And that's a change of management. The expectations of the viewing public now expecting that kind of approach. I think the Amorim approach of that honesty. Well, I was expecting, especially how the board were coming out as well, to have that approach where actually the fans are going to feel closer to the manager because of like the things that he did for Sky Sports before the appointment, and then also the board with their approach as well. But all of a sudden the results have kind of curtailed, and then literally there's nothing now. It's even worse. I think it's worse than what it was before. And that the frustrating thing is the fans feel they haven't got a mechanism to show that they're disgruntled apart from booing. Yeah. And that's what, again, as a professional athlete, creates no positive solution. And that's why collectively the 12th man, the fans, make such a massive difference. Never boo a player, however bad they play. Never boo a player on your team, because that player is never going to be any better by any kind of negativity from your home fans. And that's something for me. I've never seen it or heard it as loud as I have this season. Yeah. And I think that's because, again, it's because of communication had been opened and then shut very quickly, and the fans are going, well, actually, how do we communicate with the board and the players and the manager now? Because they were very open initially, and now we've not got any mechanism to say actually that the money that we're paying, the expectation of the team, the expectation that you really kind of sold us at the start of the season that we're going to have a progressive team that's going to hopefully win things this season, has now been closed because the results aren't there. Offer us solutions, show us that you care, show us that the team is moving forwards, and the fan will react to that. I want to be watching the games where the fans have an impact on the result. And the fans can do that. You get behind the team, you cheer the team. You look at some of those home grounds now that really do kind of embrace what football's about. The atmosphere at the start, the electricity they get behind the players. And even when the teams are behind, they want their teams to win. Now, it literally, like the stadium over the last couple of games has been terrible. And as Chris can allude to, obviously at Forest, the fans are really kind of going, actually, we expect this to happen now. And you can't be, as a fan of a football club, the expectation is that the players give their best. And they're not doing that at the moment. They're not doing that to their best of their ability. I truly believe that. I analyse the players' body language and how they're moving and their physicality weekly, and I'm seeing a lot of disconnect on lots of different levels, and definitely mentally. Like players now, I think they're kind of going, actually, I'm glad to be off the pitch now because I'd not giving my best. I don't want to get injured. The World Cup's coming up. I want to try and get my place on the World Cup and not give everything for the shirt of Spurs, which is terrible.
The sad thing that I can see is every time I go to the Tottenham Stadium, there seems to be more and more seats empty. Jamie in the comments has just said that he's tried to sell his seat on Ticket Exchange for the last couple of weeks for the Liverpool game and it hasn't sold. This is really sad, to see that, people want to sell their tickets because they don't want to watch the club, but the amount of empty seats and the amount of times that we have seen and heard boos at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium under Thomas Frank so far, we've actually heard boos more than we haven't under him in his reign at Spurs in this short period of time. And they're talking about the fans because he has spoken out about the fans a number of times, particularly in the last couple of weeks. He's done it again on Friday. Terry, I'll come to you on reaction to this. He's talking about the fans again.
I guess for that, you've got to take the fans with you. That's what you did brilliantly at Brentford. You sold the fans a dream and you took them on that journey. The Spurs fans, some may be questioning you even at an early stage in your reign. What's your message to them?
No, I think there will always be, no matter where you are, I think definitely 10% of the fans are always will question the head coach, no matter where they are. And then there will be a big group that are the, how can you say, the what is it, loyal one, or the one that can see a little bit bigger perspective. But I would say to the Spurs fans, I would say that first and foremost, it's a privilege to be part of this fantastic club. And I think it's a fantastic club with a fantastic potential that we haven't fulfilled yet. So it's a club with a top potential that we need to fulfill. And to fulfill that, there's a lot of stages we need to go through. And one thing for sure, I'm working 24/7. I've never been thinking so much about football in my entire life, and I think a lot about football to make sure we get everything right.
Terry, Thomas Frank has used that term again, and then there's the loyal fans. What's the difference with these different types of fans? Because I can see online, and a number of WhatsApp groups today, a number of friends, a number of associates have messaged me and said, "Well, what one are you?" Because when you come out and you say something like that, the fans are going to be upset, aren't they?
Yeah, part of me thinks some of that is true, and he's saying that out loud. But him as a coach, to build a relationship with the fans, you can't say something like that out loud. It's this goes back to that whole Vicario thing and booing him mid-game after that mistake against Fulham, which I disagree with, but I think he did cross the line when he said that those weren't true Tottenham fans. I mean, they were there. They were there. Like they paid money to get into the stadium. They were there. I think that absolutely crossed the line. It's interesting that he kind of stays on this narrative here. I question whether or not he really does stay away from social media, because he might actually stay away from social media, because I think if he had a little bit more insight into kind of what fans were saying and kind of how they were reacting to some of the statements that he was saying, maybe he would change his tune a little bit. I understand where he's coming from. I understand why he's saying it. I question the wisdom of how he's of saying some of that stuff out loud.
Becky Day, who is a channel regular here, she wrote the following on X earlier. I'm driving 400 miles tomorrow as a season ticket holder, but am I a loyal fan? What am I supposed to make of Thomas Frank's comments?
Yeah.
Hard to answer that, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Gareth, we're going to come to you. Thomas Frank answered the question about the players. Are they underachieving?
Thomas, sorry, just going back to the quick fixes and how long it's going to take. Are the players just underachieving? I know they won the Europa League last year, but it seems that when they lose badly. And just what's your take on the defeats that you have? Because when you're good, but when you're not, you're not.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably a fair comment. And I think the best teams, They create a stamina where they are very resilient to setbacks, and that's something we're working very hard on. But it's not a quick fix. That's small good habits in training, in games, and sometimes you see things. You can say someone maybe think it's a crazy example, but the Fulham game was not the best start. Clearly struggled the next 30 minutes. Then I think we found a way back in the second half, bit by bit. So there was bits where they stayed in the game, stick to the game plan, stick to the structure, doing the right thing. Okay, we didn't get the fantastic comeback. That'll be fantastic, beautiful, but that was a good step. As an example, but there's no doubt that demands. We are working with the characters, we're working with the leaders, we're working with the culture, and everyone that have done that before knows that is not that's not a quick process.
Gareth, I know that you do a lot of tactical breakdowns when you watch Tottenham and other clubs, and what I wanted to ask is, who is doing their job properly? Who do you think doesn't really know what they want Thomas Frank, what wants them to do? Who is performing? Who isn't performing at the moment in your eyes?
I think the whole structure of the team at the minute is off. Playing out of the back, we look like we don't know what we're doing. When Kudos comes inside, is there any relationships there with Xavi Simons and the midfielders? They bounce a pass in and receive it back. Are we seeing them link ups between our wide players and our strikers or our midfielders when a team has a high line and we play a couple of quick passes and we make a run on behind? That looks off. I understand Xavi's new, Koulibaly's new, Kudos is new. But I think Thomas Frank was surprised last couple of weeks ago on TNT Sports when they says, you're here 6 months, now you're starting to see some of your identity in this team coming through. And he says, wow, 6 months. Even he lost, it's almost like he's lost track of time, because, and I feel when I'm watching some of his press conferences,
it feels like longer.
Yeah, I'm watching some of these press conferences and, it's almost as like he's on a daze at times, like he's not really sure what's going on around him. I think when they're asking him some of these questions, he's thinking, how am I going to answer this? Because it's not going well at the moment. And he has to come up with, like that last video you played there, Chris, it seems like excuses. He's talking about a positive step, losing the game 2-1, but we were 2-0 down after 6 months, but it was a positive step. Yes, we didn't get a great comeback, but it was a positive step the way the team got a goal back and we're pushing for an equaliser. That's not a positive step. Lost the game 2-1. The fans were booing the goalkeeper during the game, and the fans booed the team off at the end. Yes, there was a 10-minute spell in the second half where we looked, we might do something, but we completely faded in the last 15 or 20 minutes. We never really looked like scoring again. So, I don't know that from the start of the season, Van de Ven's been taking a lot of the goal kicks, belted it long. It's almost like in the last couple of weeks, he says, right, we're going to stop that because the fans don't enjoy that. Let's try and play out of the back. And then we're seeing our fans saying, why are we trying to play out of the back? And I tend to agree with some of them, because if you're not coaching or you're not trained in how to do it, then it's madness even attempting to do it. That first goal against Forest was a mess from top to bottom. Everything about it was wrong. Vicario playing the pass with his weak foot, and the Archie Gray who received it on his weak foot. And Archie Gray actually showed, and I think Thomas Frank alluded to it, that he wasn't supposed to, but he felt he had to because the team wasn't set up correctly. That wasn't, he done that on his own initiative. And fair play to Archie Gray, because he recognised that Vicario was in trouble because he took too long to play the pass to Van de Ven. And in the end, Archie Gray went on. And if you ask me, the manager threw him under the bus. That for me was a goalkeeping error. It all started with Vicario. Yes, Archie Gray could have done a little bit better, but he received he received the ball with his wrong foot. He couldn't actually physically play the pass to Romero. And Jamie Carragher broke that down really well on the Super Sunday Extra Time show. And this has been a number of times now where Vicario's been indecisive. And whilst, he's a professional goalkeeper and he's had enough experience now, I do think that players are like babies on a pitch. They need to be instructed on what they do. When I coach my teams at the weekend, if they make a mistake, even if it's a really basic error, I take that as I'm responsible, because they should know exactly what they're doing in that situation. So we're seeing a Tottenham team that have more errors leading to goals than any other team. So this isn't just a one-off, and multiple players are making multiple errors. So that again is a coaching oversight, where there's something there. The players need help. And look, this is the top level of professional sport. You're up against world-class players week in, week out. So yes, we might have supposed top-class elite players that play at professional level. Obviously, there's a different bracket with the real top players, which we haven't really got at the moment. But they're professional trained athletes.
Rich, I'm going to come to you now. I'm going to play this last clip from Thomas Frank.
Richard, I'm sure rule. Sorry, Richard, just saying there. Sorry, Richard. I'm just saying, you're somebody that competes, and you competed in the Paralympic Games. I'm sure you don't do all your preparation yourself. I'm sure there's other people involved in the planning for those events. So these players need exactly the same when they're going on the pitch.
But they're also professional athletes as well, and they're not kids. They're not this. It's like the reason why the professional athletes that are top of the game, that are playing national, international games, and for me, it's like some of the mistakes that I'm seeing is like playground football. It's terrible, and yes, you have to be brave, but that's it. These behaviours, these kind of these things that happen, and all this like weaker foot. Like I'm not being funny, but the off season, why aren't you practicing your weaker foot? It's it's ridiculous. I think as a professional footballer, you need to be accountable for that. And I don't get weaker foot, stronger foot thing. Yeah, maybe obviously technically proficient in that one, but I just really struggle with that as somebody that's a professional in their field. And then you look at footballers, and I can only do it on the left wing. I can't do it on the right wing because I'm only right footed. I'm only right footed. Well, why are you playing in the Premier League then? You get found out. It's like, well, you're playing against world class players. You're always going to get found out, and maybe that's what's happened along the season, that we've got Bob average players that are getting found out, and this season they're literally getting rolled over by every team.
Well, he said in the press conference on Friday that the Nottingham Forest game is because we lacked energy.
Yeah, lacked a lot, not just energy. I saw some of that. I definitely saw that. You know, I'm like Chris, like the tunnel at the start of the game is like pinnacle to how the game normally pans out, and you could see that. But also lack of direction. I think the kind of signals from the bench were not very consistent. I also think like players look very frustrated. It's not just because of lack of energy, clearly. And then like managers blame it on like having midweek fixtures. I think we've got a squad. He has rotated that squad clearly, especially in midfield. A lot of those rotations haven't worked. I've wanted more consistency along the team. Momentum's key in football. Momentum. You've got your starting 11. Your starting 11 wins. You'd like to think the next week you've played well. You probably have your starting position for the next week, and you keep that. Whoever comes back into the side due to injury, or they're now able to, I think you still keep that starting 11 because the team's proved to you that they deserve that opportunity. And Frank's unfortunately changed it when we've had a winning team, and that's not helped him.
You know, the thing I don't like about that argument, the lack of energy, is that Forest had 2 less days than us, and they had to travel to the Netherlands and come back. So how did Forest have energy? So is that on the players, or is that on the coach? Like that, as much as I'm trying to defend Frank, I think that's an indefensible argument.
He
from his
touched
press conferences, mate. I tell though, it's lack of energy from him. Like he says the word passion and the word like devastation in the same breath, with no difference of energy. You want somebody that's a leader of your club to show passion and to demonstrate that we can get out of this sticky situation we're in. And that's what I think Gareth was alluding to about the honesty and transparency of the likes of Amorim, where you know what you're going to get. With Tonic Frank, we kind of know what we're going to get, but it's bullshit. he needs to be more passionate. He needs to be more connected. It's his responsibility to be connected to the fans, not the fans' responsibility to be connected to him, because that isn't going to work.
Are you still behind Thomas Frank, Rich? And do you think it's going to work out with Thomas Frank?
Look, I was never in for that appointment. I wasn't kind of. I think for me it was more. I didn't see where his European experience was. I'd heard a lot of things from like other professionals like Jermaine Defoe around how good a coach he is. And from that point of view, obviously he's a professional person that obviously loves the club and also has played at the highest level. So you've got to take their word for the kind of things that he's seeing. But was I a fan that was motivated by that appointment? Definitely not. Going back to what you said, I think you have to be behind the manager. You have to be behind who's there.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to work out? If it carries on like this, no, it's not going to work out because he's not showing signs of that. Lots of inconsistency. No, like looking inverted.
Richard, see the things that you've touched on there.
Go for it.
Yeah, see the things you've touched on there, Richard, about the press conferences, the way he's criticised the fans, the identity on the pitch, the players not really respecting him at times. It all points to him as this job too big for him, as he out of his depth at this level. And I think we've all made points around that without really saying it. I think Terry's trying to be patient, but all the signs point to that this is too big for him, and he doesn't know how to handle being at a top club like this. One, because he's got the lack of experience, and two, I don't think some of the decisions that he's made, like you've mentioned there, with the press conferences, the way he spoke about the fans, it's just a lack of an experience and not knowing how to behave at this level. And I think, the way he keeps talking about our opposition being strong and being really, really difficult, and this is going to take, a long time to get right, and a quick fix keeps going back to the last season about how many goals we were conceding. It all points to a manager that's really, really struggling at this level.
Yeah, for sure. And also, where's those positive solutions? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, we conceded 3 goals against Forest. We've had a great week of training this week, and we've really worked on some of the mistakes that we made in that game. And there were many mistakes that we made in that game, but we've owned those mistakes, and we've come out at like bigger, stronger characters, and we're gonna show the fans that we've got what it takes to beat the big teams like Liverpool. And I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to be like, look, at the moment, he's in a situation where he needs to kind of win the fans back. He needs to win the players back. So you need to support the players in when they cross that white line, that you've given them every tool in the book to be successful. And not just, he writes down a lot of shit and he's like, all this kind of stuff, and it's like that. No, the players are in front of you. That's what you need to do. Yes, you've got other members of staff there, but dictate to the players how you want them. Move the players around, kind of support, give them positive signs to say that the things they are doing well, you're supporting that, and things that they're not doing so well, let's kind of get around those. And I'm not seeing that. And that's a frustrating thing for me, is that every week seeing the same kind of negative body language, seeing the same kind of like the players coming on the pitch and you're not knowing what you're getting. And the home form has been terrible until the last couple of weeks, and we can't even rely on that. And even the away form now, after that 3-0 drubbing by Forest, we're not showing that we can get back into games at all. Like, I never at one point against that Forest team thought we were going to get back into that game. Yeah. And that was the lack of shots, but also lack of like players actually going for it. I've spoke about like players not. The commitment that players are showing, even like the captain, is sometimes you just want.
And the manager's subs didn't exactly inspire a comeback either, did they, Richard? The subs, the shits didn't inspire a comeback.
No, they didn't. No. And again, you kind of, I would say probably he's had more weapons on the bench than the last couple of managers regarding having players that could make an impact. But oh my goodness,
yeah, Richard, to that point, you said kind of trying new things. I will say it does seem that he is pretty stubborn, especially with this attack. That's one place where I'd like to see a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more creativity and ideas. maybe try Kudus on the left. He's left-footed. He can ping crosses in. Try Brennan Johnson on the right. He can get there on at the end of the post. I don't, just try these things. Try Matisse Tell up front. Try. He seems so wedded to just Colomani and Richarlison. Richarlison especially, him and Odegaard. I don't understand how he's so loyal to them when we have these games where you have zero shots on target or one shot on target. I'd like to see a little less stubbornness, a little bit more creativity there. And kind of, Chris, going back to you had asked Richard earlier about, do you think Slinky and Madison and Kulusevski coming back would make a difference? I think it'd be transformational, to be honest. I mean, you think about how many long balls are pinged in to Richarlison, and it bounces off him like he's a ping pong table or something. Slinky's a really strong, and he's great at holding up the ball. We would be losing, feels like 5 to 10 less balls with someone like Slinky up there. We would be progressing the ball up with much more strength through the middle with Kulusevski or Madison. Whereas right now, it's so predictable. Everything's going down the wings, and then the players are cutting inside, and then we just do a little horseshoe back and forth until we lose the ball. It's just
the players are robotic, aren't they? The players are robotic. Like I say, you think maybe sometimes it looks like we're going to obviously throw that ball into the box as a long ball, and then just switch it up. Like players do that, and you'd like them to be a little bit creative.
Yeah.
But Jesus, like what I don't understand is that last season, obviously Johnson scored all those goals. We lost those out of the team, and we need to have an explanation why he's literally gone from obviously leading goal scorer to obviously not getting in the team and not be. If that's a disciplinary side or he's not kind of buying into the post of the team, that's fair enough. And yes, I understand that teams play differently, and then that doesn't suit certain players. Players need to adapt clearly, but that needs to be an explanation. How can you be that influential on the team and then literally be nowhere near it? And also under Ange, Johnson was a threat off the bench.
Yeah.
On the attacking side, though, Terry, we don't play through balls. We've got the lowest stat in the Premier League for through balls. We're very reliant on the crosses. So I'm not sure. I've always said, and I've always said about Ange Postecoglou as well, not that I want to compare, but I always love to see a manager have virtually a fully fit squad so you can really judge what the manager can do. So I get that. I get the whole Solanke, Kulusevski, Madison. I do get that argument. What worries me is, will things change dramatically? Because he was asked in the press conference on Friday, are you more worried about what Liverpool are going to do rather than what Tottenham are going to do to Liverpool? And I thought that was a great question in the press conference, because it does seem to be that we are more concerned about the opposition, about what we are going to do. And I must say, and I hate feeling negative about Spurs. I want this to work. As I've said, Terry, you clearly want it to work. It sounds like Richard and Gareth have given up, and they've given up a long time ago. I think that's pretty obvious on this podcast right now. But you feel what you feel. You can't tell people how to feel. You know, you want to be entertained. You want to win football matches. And, like Gareth said, people are, voting with their feet right now. Let's go
Can I just ask just real quick, just Richard and Gareth, are you not curious enough to see a Thomas Frank team with Solanke up front, Kudus on the right, Colomwani on the left, Kulusevski bringing the ball up the middle, Palhinha at the back as the six? So
Terry, my concern, right, is Xavi Simons is supposed to be a creative player, and Kudus is supposed to be a creative player, and then nothing's happening with these two, right? If Madison or Kulusevski play, they're going to play in Simons' position. So. Yeah. Are they better players than Xavi Simons? Yes. Madison's a lot more experience, but there was times with Madison that he wasn't on the team because Ange had dropped him. Kulusevski again is another player on his day, is a fantastic player, but he's a bit inconsistent as well. Both those players that you mentioned of course they are, but they were both inconsistent in their Spurs career. At times they've had moments where they've not been on the team, they've been on the bench. So for me, I think it's only going to be one of Madison, Kulusevski, or Simons for Thomas Frank in a game, because I think he'll play with two holding midfielders, whether that's Bentniker and Palhinha, or Archie Gray and Polina, or he might play Bergville or Showery, one of them. I don't think you'll ever see a situation where he plays Madison, Simmons, and Cole. I don't think he'll play two of them together. So Solanke, I think you've got a point. I think Solanke would make a difference because of what you've pointed out there about the direct play. He's better at holding the ball up. But if that's what we're clutching at, if that's what will be better when Solanke's back because he can hold the ball up better, we shouldn't really be playing that direct style of football. We're not a team that should be going long so often. We should be trying to play through teams. My worry is that I don't think Xavi Simons' strengths are being played in this style of play. And I think Madison and Kulusevski will be very similar. Solanke, I think you've got a point, definitely.
Yeah, I like the graphic that Chris just put up. I think we would see a lot more progressive passing. I think we would see a lot more through balls. And that on top of the long balls into Solanke plus the wide play would make us much less predictable. So I think even if it's just a 1-for-1 swap with a Kulusevski over Xavi and Solanke over Richarlison, I think that would transform our play.
Yeah, these stats on screen now, for those listening on audio, these stats on screen now from Spurs PL Statsman. Do go over and follow them because they come out with some super stuff. So Tottenham Hotspur progressive passes leaders in the Premier League this season so far. So you've got Pedro Porro way out in front with 79, Xavi Simons 59, Jed Spence 45, Romero 44, Van der Ven 40, Udogi 37, Polina 36, Kudus is there with 35. Now, if you go to last season's, obviously, this is throughout the whole of the Premier League campaign for 2024-2025. James Maddison, 164. Pedro Porro, 154. Kulusevski, 124. Udogi, 121. Heung-min Son, 111. Jed Spence, 105. Bentancur, 100. So, Gareth, what do you make of these stats? Because I think Terry does have a point. And I think a lot of Spurs fans who are trying to be very positive about the situation, Thomas Frank, and for people who just want to be glass half full type of people, they want to see the best in Thomas Frank. Could make us more creative. We could score more goals. We could be an entertaining team because, I think it's fair to say as well, like I said at the top, it was a positive week against Brentford and Slavia Prague. We know that we can score goals. We know that we can be entertaining.
Look, Terry makes some good points. There's no doubt that Maddison and this team, there will be more forward passes. I think that's pretty obvious from the stats and what the A test. We know Maddison likes to get on the ball and play forward. My argument for that was Maddison's an inconsistent player. That he started his Tottenham career on fire and he had a good spell last year leading up to the Europa League semi-final when he got injured. He was playing somewhere near the top of his game, and he's top of that stats chart there for progressive passes. But Xavi Simons is second. So, Xavi Simons has almost replaced Maddison with the injury. So Xavi's trying to play forward, and it's not really happening. Kulusevski, I think, yes. So maybe Kulusevski could play on the right, but then maybe Kudus doesn't play, or maybe, like Terry says, Kudus goes over to the left. But I don't think it would change much because from what I'm seeing, Chris, there's a clear directive to play long balls. I mean, Pedro Porro's only first there because a lot of the balls are going forward quite long, or crosses from deep under the box. So Porro's stats are a little bit deceiving because of the way the team's been asked to play. So
I knew you were going to say not having any of it.
No, I think it's a massive concern, that chart that you put up, that Polina, Bentancur, Bergville, Sarr, and Gray were near the bottom. They're the midfielders that play, and they're all near the bottom there. And Chris, I don't know if you've seen the stats with Bentancur under the last three different managers, Conte, Ange, and Thomas Frank. Now, we know Ange is a very much attacking manager, so his stats were always going to be a lot higher. But Conte was kind of more on the Thomas Frank side, to be honest. I think he was more pragmatic. Maybe not as pragmatic as Thomas Frank, but he definitely wasn't as attacking as Ange Postecoglou. Bentancur's stats have dropped by 50% of progressive passes from Antonio Conte's era to now. So forget about Ange's because they were insanely high because of the way the team was being asked to play. They've dropped off 50% from when Antonio Conte was here. So, I don't know what the general fan feeling is of Bentancur. I think he is inconsistent, but I do think there is a decent player there. And I do think he is more of a forward passer than somebody that likes to play Sif. But my concern is, I think he's been asked to play Sif. and been told not to be giving the ball away in dangerous areas, and they take the safe option and play the pass backwards. And that's a common theme with a lot of the midfielders. Lucas Bergvall looks a shadow of the player he was last year because he's not been allowed to do what he wants, what his strengths are. Pape Sarr had a good start, but then he found himself out of the team because I think Pape Sarr is one of those players that takes risks, and Thomas Frank doesn't like that. I think it was fantastic what you mentioned there, Chris, about the press conference. The question that the reporter asked Thomas Frank about Liverpool, it was a brilliant question. And I criticize some of the reporters sometimes because I think they ask very stiff questions to stay on, the good side of the managers. That was a very much a difficult question to answer. And I think it was refreshing to see a reporter do that. And Thomas Frank's answer, again, he spoke about Liverpool and the answer more than he spoke about Spurs. He says it's really important that we stop Liverpool. And I think that's a massive, massive concern that this manager, it shows you the mentality, Chris, that he's more worried about Liverpool, what Liverpool's going to do to us, and not thinking about what we should be doing to them. Because you call it old-fashioned, the best form of attack, or the best form of defence is attack for me. Be on the front foot, be brave, make it difficult for Liverpool. And if Spurs did that in the first 15 minutes on Saturday, where Liverpool couldn't get out and Spurs were swarming them, how do you think the fans would react? The fans would be getting on the players' side and the atmosphere would go up and it would make it more difficult for Liverpool. But if we come out, let Liverpool play around the back, let them play passes on the midfield, and we're camped in our own half defending, the fans are going to be disenfranchised and they're going to be criticising and booing. So, no, for me, the manager has to take responsibility for these numbers, not the players, because we've seen them play more progressive passes under different managers.
Let's hear now from Thomas Frank. This is the last press conference clip from him.
In terms of Liverpool tomorrow, they won't have Cody Gakpo, they won't have Joe Gomez. There's a question mark about Dominic Szoboszlai, and of course they won't have Mohamed Salah available. What can you expect from them tomorrow, and what have you made of their up and down season and the way that Arne Slot has really handled this season so far?
I think Liverpool is an excellent team. They are the champions, well-deserved champions last year. They started very well. I think they got fantastic players. I think in Hugo Ekitike, I think he's had what a season he's having. Isaac, we know, is a top striker as well. He will come. Wirtz is fantastic player with a big potential, adapting to the Premier League. I think last year they had one of the best midfield three in the league, maybe most complete, in Gravenberg, McAllister and Szoboszlai. And Szoboszlai is a beast, so he will play tomorrow, of course. So it's a very good team that we're facing. But also know we hit a high level. We can be we can compete very well, and I believe we can do something good, and we'll go for the 3 points.
Sorry,
Gareth,
Chris,
I suppose I should come to you on this one.
Yeah, I was just as I say quite quickly, there was no reason for him to mention about all those great players Liverpool have. All he had to say was they're a good team, they're the champions. Yes, it'll be a difficult game, but talk about his own players, talk about what we're going to do, deflect, because that is gloating Liverpool. He done the same about with Newcastle, talking about how great their midfield is. It's almost like he's jealous of what Arne Slot's got. I watched Arne Slot's press conference today because I wanted to see the differences in how the manager spoke. Arne Slot didn't mention any of our players. He talked about, I think he mentioned about his results with Thomas Frank, and it knows how difficult it is to play a Thomas Frank team because they're defensive and hard to beat. It took him 92 minutes last season to score away at Brentford. That was all he mentioned. He didn't mention anything else. He spoke about his own players, about it was good to have Curtis Jones back, and Szoboszlai would be touching go. But again, we've built Liverpool up as this fantastic team. Yes, they're the champions, but the reporter started the question very, very smartly as well. She mentioned that the amount of players that Liverpool would be missing, and he spoke about all the ones that would be there because he wanted to make it out that he wanted to put this propaganda out there that's still a very strong Liverpool team when we know it's not. Their back fours all over the place. They've had massive problems at right back this season. They've had issues in midfield. We fighting the right balance because Wirtz has been on there. Isak hasn't been fit, so they've been chopping and changing up there. Mo Salah's not available, and he set the place on fire last week. So this is a Liverpool team with a lot of question marks. Arne Slot's under massive pressure. It's only a couple of weeks ago. It was 9 defeats in 12, and they've lost to some bang average teams. So, that was he should have fueled the fire there and says, this is going to be a difficult game for Liverpool. And we're going to go out with the attitude of beating Liverpool, and we're going to disregard it to the champions because this is a big game for us. For me, far too much gloating about Liverpool and that there. He spoke more about Liverpool than he did about his own club.
Gareth, just to be fair, again, Thomas Frank apologist here, but that is his MO. I mean, there was a press conference last year for Brentford against Tottenham where he talked up Yves Bissouma, Bentancur, and Kulusevski as a top midfielder.
Yeah,
so
but he's at Tottenham now, not Brentford.
Yeah, it's not something. It's that's just his MO. Like it's, man, you really don't like Thomas Frank. Like it's every single thing.
I think he's a nice guy.
I think he's
a nice guy, but I don't think he's the right man for this club.
Yeah, clearly.
Right. Rich, before we come to you, let's have a look at some of the stats here. League position, Spurs are 11th, Liverpool 7th. Wins, Spurs 6, Liverpool 8. Draws, Spurs 4, Liverpool 2. Defeats, 6 apiece. Spurs have scored 25 times in the Premier League this campaign. Liverpool have 26. Average goals per match, Tottenham 2, Liverpool 2. Average goals conceded per match, Tottenham 1, Liverpool 2. XG, Spurs 15.29 to Liverpool's 26.32. XG per 90 minutes, Spurs 0.96 to Liverpool's 1.65. Clean sheets, 5 apiece. And as I mentioned, Spurs are in 11th, 6 points away from the top 4, 6 points above 17th, and Liverpool are 7th. Liverpool have 4 points more than Spurs. Now, the form at the moment, the last 5 games in the Premier League, Spurs a 4-1 defeat at Arsenal, and then a home defeat against Fulham, 2-1, and then 2-2 against Newcastle away, beating Brentford 2-0, and then most recently losing to Forest 3-0. And Liverpool, their last 5 games in the Premier League, losing at home against Nottingham Forest 3-0, and then beating West Ham 2-0 away. A 1-1 draw at home, a 3-3 draw away at Leeds, and most recently a 2-0 win at home against Brighton. So they're unbeaten in their last 4, and plus they've played a couple of Champions League games as well, which they've won both of them. Their last time out, beating Brighton 2-0, Ekitike with both goals. Salah came off the bench to grab an assist, but of course he will not be playing in this game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium because he has just flown off to AFCON. Now, last time out against Brighton, this was a Liverpool team, Becker in goal, and then Gomez, Konate, Van Dijk, Kirkes, in midfield, Gravenberch, Jones, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Wirtz and Ekitike, and what a strong bench they've got as well. Rich, what have you made of Liverpool this season? Have you been surprised? Because of course they are champions. Can they turn this around? Can they compete for the title? Are they that good to do that this year?
Are they good enough to do that? I don't think they will. I don't think they'll turn around their season completely. I think they're going to be more competitive. I think they've got underlying issues within the squad. Obviously, injuries is one, but we know what's that's like. Obviously, the Diego Jota situation internally has had a massive effect, and then also the Salah situation about obviously being dropped from games or sitting on the bench, or clearly he wants to leave the club. So they've got some real problems to navigate. You look at their squad and their strengths. Obviously, they've got strengths in multiple positions, and obviously that midfield that they had that was so dominant last season potentially could be the same this season, with a couple of tweaks. Their real issues have been at the back, and some of the injuries that they have had in the back. And I don't want to be like Thomas Frank and talk about their team, but you can see their strengths and where they could really hurt as a team. I think our problem, obviously, against a team like that is that, like a lot of Liverpool teams in the past, they tend to wear you down, and because of the quality that they've got. Especially if that was the same kind of bench minus Mo Salah, they've got weapons on the bench to hurt you. Obviously, the price tag on Isak's head with obviously coming from Newcastle, but also Chiesa as well. That's obviously scored some key goals for Liverpool in the past. Or you look at Spurs' team from the last game. Could you see that we've got the same kind of weapons coming off the bench? I don't think so. Liverpool as team, obviously, a strong team. They've had a lot of change within the squad. I think obviously the pressures come on the manager because of the amount of money they've actually spent within the transfer market, but there is other underlying factors that have meant that they've been inconsistent. I think, unfortunately for Spurs, we've probably seeing Liverpool maybe a couple of weeks down the line where they've actually turned their season around, and you look at those games that they played, they've started to kind of turn the key and play good football. And we are so inconsistent. So it's really kind of heads or tails to what kind of Spurs turn up, where I think Liverpool have got a format now, how they play, and obviously TK or Isak, whoever plays up front, they've got that class finisher that's obviously going to create lots of chances, and they're definitely going to get them against us.
Terry, let's come to you. Of course, as I said there, they've come into some good form. What do you expect from this game? And, Richard's a big Liverpool up there, as did Thomas Frank. But where are Liverpool's weaknesses, would you say, in this team?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to depend on whether Szoboszlai is fit or not tomorrow. I think Arne Slot said if he's fit that he'll start, but I think today was supposed to be his first day back at a full practice. So hopefully that means he isn't. When you just look at the names just on paper, it's incredible on both sides of what we're looking at here. But clearly they can be got at. It's like the chemistry isn't there like it was last season. It's amazing how open the defense can be sometimes. Kirkus was so amazing at Bournemouth, and he seems really vulnerable at Liverpool. Even Van Dijk isn't the same Van Dijk that we've been used to. Konate's made a lot of kind of high profile errors. So it feels like they can be got at. Like it really does. I think it's more a question of which Tottenham team shows up here, because it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with this club. Like we could, if they show up and play like we know they can play. They haven't done it that many times, but if we think back to that Man City team, that Leeds team, that Everton team, that type of performance can beat this Liverpool team. If it's anything like we've seen, if it's anything like we saw against Forest or Arsenal or Chelsea, it's going to be an embarrassment. Like I had mentioned in my weekly thing that my personal yardstick, my personal measure for are Spurs a good team or not is how they perform in the 6 Premier League games against Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool, because we always struggle against them. I feel like the year where we can get 9 points in those 6 games against those 3 teams, we can say that Tottenham are a good team. Obviously, we're 0 for 2 thus far this season to get to that point. So to me, just personally, for kind of where we are as a team tomorrow, or this Liverpool game is extremely, extremely important. And I think the chance is there. I'm trying to, my head is saying that don't get your hopes up too much, but my heart is certainly feeling, slight modicums of hope here.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to like these stats, Terry. Quite scary stats, actually. Tottenham have won just 2 of the last 25 Premier League games against Liverpool, drawing 6 and losing 17, picking up home wins in October 2017. That was at Wembley, winning 4-1, and September 2023, winning 2-1. That was under Ange Postecoglou. And after that game, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was like a nightclub. That was an incredible atmosphere. Another extremely interesting stat here, Liverpool v Spurs is the top scoring fixture in Premier League history, producing 206 goals. The last 3 league matches between the pair have seen 21 goals, an average of 7 per game, while there have been at least 3 goals in 14 of their last 16 Premier League meetings. Gareth, let me come to you, just talking about Liverpool. What's gone wrong for Liverpool? Because, of course, champions last season, they had a huge summer bringing in a wealth of quality players. Everyone thought, give them the title now. They're going to run away with it. And now we see them in 7th spot.
King Hoddle in the chat here's going on about Arne Slot. Should he be under pressure? And he's right. He makes a good point that, we're criticising Thomas Frank. But if you actually look at it, a lot of Liverpool fans have been criticising Arne Slot because it doesn't seem like he can handle these big personalities that has been brought on. He came into a very settled group last year. They only really brought on the one player in Chiesa, who was a butt part player, let's be honest. So it was basically the same team from seasons gone by, and he made them a bit more solid. I think he benefited from Van Dijk having an unbelievable season and Mo Salah having an unbelievable season. They had two players at the top of their game, and that can make a massive difference. If you look at a lot of the games they won, they were tight games, and they got that winning mentality that once you're on a run, teams often, I think back to that season where Spurs went unbeaten at home, Chris, at White Hart Lane, teams were often looked beaten in the tunnel before they came out. And I think when you're on a run like that, and Liverpool, we know, is a very tough place to go, Anfield, I think teams almost felt defeated. So yes, he had a bit of good fortune, but he managed that group really, really well. And you can't expect that what's happening this year to happen last year with that sort of hangover of Jurgen Klopp leaving. But he's changed things around and he's brought on a lot of attacking players. I think the mistake that Arne Slot made was they didn't invest in the defensive side of the game. And you probably couldn't have foreseen the drop-off that Van Dijk's had. He's not been the same player this season. Konate, as Terry rightly pointed out, has made a lot of calamitous errors that's not helped Van Dijk. The left-back, Kerkez, has been a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. He hasn't shown anything compared to how he was playing at Bournemouth. Andy Robertson's another year older, and he's had his injury problems. He's lost a bit of pace. There's been a massive problem at right-back, and they've lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, who was a massive player for them because he had that relationship with Mo Salah, and he was a very creative player, and he went into the midfield and made an extra man. They haven't got that now with him away. So Arne Slot has come under a lot of pressure, and the last couple of results have helped him. But the difference being, there's two main differences between Slot and Frank. Arne Slot's got credit in the bank. He won the Premier League last season. Thomas Frank hasn't got that credit in the bank at Tottenham because it's his first season. And number two is a lot of the games that Liverpool have lost, Chris, if you go through the stats, they've had 25 to 30 shots in a lot of them. They've been peppering the opposition, but they've been let down, as Terry and Richard rightly pointed out, with their defensive frailties. They haven't really got the options. Konate's been badly struggling, and if he was playing for any other team in the Premier League now, he'd probably dropped. But they've only got two centre-backs fit, Liverpool, so they've got no option but to keep playing them through this difficult period. So that is where the game can be won tomorrow for Tottenham. If you look at the games that Liverpool have lost, especially away from home, Brentford, they were beaten up. They were bullied physically. Brentford, made it really, really difficult for them. If you think back to the Leeds game, which was almost like a defeat for Liverpool, they were 2-0 up and 3-2 up and drew the game 3-3. Leeds again, they went after them in that second half. Nottingham Forest done an absolute number on them. And Thomas Frank has been gloating about the set pieces. Well, Liverpool are the worst team in the league at defending set pieces. So I'm expecting to see us being dangerous from them tomorrow. But the biggest issue, and this is a message for Thomas Frank, it's difficult to get corners without having shots. So if you look in recent weeks, we've actually not had that many corners or had that many opportunities to get the ball into the box because we're not creating enough from open play. If we go after this team, Konate's been an absolute bomb scare on the ball. He keeps giving the ball away, playing out of the back. If we can get into his fists and press him and win the ball back and win loads of corners and set pieces, that'll make Liverpool nervous because of the amount of goals they've conceded from set pieces. So I really hope the message from the team, the coaching team tomorrow, is do not respect Liverpool as the champions. Look at their form this season. Look at the same mistakes they keep making, and let's force those errors and let's make it a really uncomfortable night for Liverpool. Because if Liverpool turn up and have the same kind of passes that Chelsea had, where it was very comfortable for Chelsea, as Terry and Richard pointed out, they've got a lot of quality attacking players, and they'll just rip us to shreds, and it'll be an all too familiar feel. So I really want to see an aggressive Tottenham on Saturday night, Chris.
Right, we're now going to play a very short clip from Arne Slot's press conference ahead of this game, and then we will finish with predicted lineups and score predictions.
No, I've said last week, actions speak louder than words, and we moved on. He was in the squad, and he was the first substitution I made. But now he's at the AFCON, playing big games for himself, but also for the country. So I think it's fair to them, but definitely also for us, because we are going to play some very important games. That all the focus is for him over there. and there should not be any distraction of me saying anything about his time here at Liverpool, because what I said, we've moved on after the Leeds interview, and he played against Brighton, and now he's there. So it's fair for that country and for him, and also for us, to talk for us about Tottenham and other games, and for them to be fully focused on their tournament. And I see now players progressing in terms of their fitness, and as a result of that, in their performances. And so yeah, I think we are definitely making progress. First of all, because players are fitter, more ready for what the request is, that demands, what the demands are, and that's a good base to start from. And now we have to, and I've seen so many moments in games where we played so well. Yeah, I think we are getting closer and closer to the team I want us to be, and that has gone with ups and downs. Let's be completely clear about that. But for me, that makes complete sense, because all the changes we've made during the summer, and we made them on purpose because we thought we needed to. And if I'm completely honest, maybe I didn't expect it to take maybe as long as it did. But looking back on it, reflecting on it now, I think I've been too positive, because if you go with a new group where not all of them are completely ready to play every single game 90 minutes in this intensity, you have to adapt. Sometimes he can play, then he cannot play. So it takes maybe a bit of time. And we've been very unlucky. Unlucky with referee decisions, I said this multiple times.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, Liverpool are unbeaten in their last 4 in the Premier League. Who would have thought that? Who would have imagined that they get into a little bit of form when they are just about to play Tottenham? Now, Richard, we're going to come to you first. This is the team that Thomas Frank put out against Forest on Sunday at the City Ground in our 3-0 defeat. Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Spence, Bentancur, Gray, Kudus, Simmons, Kolo Muani and Richarlison. The subs on Sunday were Bergvall, Danso, Davis, Johnson, Kinski, Polinia, Odebear, Sarr and Tell. Now, from that starting 11, what changes would you like to see made, and what do you think Thomas Frank will do against Liverpool on Saturday?
Oh my goodness. I think it's going to be really close to that team. I think he might fancy Polinia in the team, whether that's instead of Gray or with Gray and instead of Bentancur. I think he's obviously, because of the players that he's got available at the moment, he might go for Kolo Muani and Richarlison within those positions, and then swapping them around mid-game. I think it might be a case of the team that we had against Forest need to kind of turn up and show up in this game. But I don't think there'll be too many changes, to be completely honest. And that's a worrying thing, that obviously we can be so bad against Forest and so open in the midfield against Forest. And whether he's kind of pressured himself now to start Simmons, whatever he does play like, and he's not going to go down that more kind of robust midfield and bring maybe not 2, but actually 3 people that actually sit in there and give the wingers and the person furthest forward a little bit of a license to actually go after the opposition. Bergvall, will he start? Well, like alluded to before, I think he was a shadow of himself last couple of games. I think he feels more restricted with how he's playing. But I actually don't think it will be a million miles off what we're actually seeing on the screen today. To be completely honest, if people are expecting 5 or 6 changes, I think that's definitely not going to happen. Maybe 1 or 2, and the one change might be in that central position, and Polinia coming in, whether it's but it's to kind of fix up, to fill up that midfield and make it a little bit more robust, and make a bit more of a holding midfield role, or he's actually going to swap one of those midfielders out, and keep either Gray or Benzinker, swap one of those two out, and keep it as consistent as he can do.
Rich, last question for you. What's your score prediction? And with the next 5 fixtures for Spurs, Liverpool at home, Palace away, Brentford away, Sunderland at home, Bournemouth away, these next 5 fixtures, out of a possible 15 points, how many are we picking up?
Which one do you want? Score prediction first?
Go for it.
Score prediction. I don't really ever say that we're going to lose against a team. I think it's too negative. So I'll go for a draw. And I think we're going to have to show up and we're going to have a performance. And then out of the 15 points, 7 or 8. 7 or 8, I think.
Where'd you get them from then?
Wait a minute, that wasn't the question. Well, if I should have pointed at Liverpool, I think we're obviously got 3 away games there. I'd like to think we'd also beat Brentford away, and then Sunderland at home is a different game than Sunderland away. So maybe 6 points there, so 7 with Liverpool. I don't think we beat Bournemouth away. I actually don't think we beat Crystal Palace away either. So that's where my 7 points are.
Okay. Terry, same questions for you. Predicted lineup, score prediction, and how many points?
What do you think, Chris? You always throw this on us. What do you think?
No, I'm the host tonight.
See, I know you always do this. You throw it, and you put me in that position that I hate.
Well, I haven't asked you your favourite question. Where do you think we'll finish at the end of the season? Should we do that one as well?
Werner. Well, why have we not got Werner back in the team? That's what you normally ask me.
Your standard answer was 5th, wasn't it?
I think most seasons I did say 5th. At this point,
we finished 17th.
Yeah, well, I did well. I did well. That was at the start of the season before we kicked a ball, though. To be honest, Chris.
Yeah.
And it did change a couple of times. I don't think on the last day of the season I was still saying that we're going to be 5th, though. So
no. I'll let you off that one.
Yeah, we're going to finish about 15th, probably.
God.
I know.
Terry.
Imagine.
Yeah.
No.
So the lineup that I think Frank is going to go with is just like Richard said. I think it's going to be very similar to what we saw before. I think the only change we're going to see is the return of Bentinha. So I think we're going to see Betancourt and Polina in the back. So Polina for Gray, and I think that's because he's going to be playing towards Liverpool, which I don't agree with. The lineup that I would like to see, and I don't think this is going to happen, but so same back 5. I'd like to see a midfield of Polina as the 6, Bergvall as the 8, and Simmons as the 10. And then as I alluded to before, I'd like to see him trying something different up front. So if it was me, and I know it's not going to be me, but I would like to see Kudus on the left wing, Brennan Johnson on the right wing, and Kolomwani as center forward. Or switch up whatever 3 he wants. But as long as it's not Richarlison, like that's what I would like to see. In terms of score prediction, today's extremely positive discussion around Frank is kind of geeing me up to say that I think we will kind of get away with this with a draw. I honestly thought we were going to come in with a loss, but I'm going to say 1-1 tomorrow. And in terms of the next 5 games, my initial thought was 5 points. A draw in each game. I hope Richard's right.
I'll go along with you, Terry. 5 draws, 5 points. Yeah.
Yeah. So 5 points. Hoping that Richard's right with the 8 points. I would absolutely take 8 points.
See, Rich and Gareth, me and Terry are trying to be positive. We're trying. We're trying.
You spent some time with Thomas Frank, Chris, I think.
Gareth, what about you?
Are you really giving me the last word here? The most positive person? I think the lads have summed it up well regarding the team selection. I think it's Thomas Frank has told the fans today with his press conference that it's going to be Polina and Bentancur. I think it's pretty obvious from what he said about how good Liverpool are that we have to try and stop them if we've any chance. So it's going to be.
He did say we've got to defend.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, Chris, you're going to the game tomorrow. You're going to be seeing a lot of defending and not so much attacking. But look, I think the only positive we can take is that Liverpool have this nasty habit of making crazy errors and gifting goals to the opposition. So I think they might help us out. So I'm going to go along with the lads that we're going to get a draw. It's going to be 2-2. And interestingly enough, it says about 5 draws. My worry is that Thomas Frank would probably take that now. I think he would take 5 draws. And that is what worries me. But I'll go with a 2-2 draw. As for the rest of Christmas, I don't really. I think Crystal Palace will be very, very difficult. I think that'll be an all or nothing for us. I think we'll get beaten up pretty badly, 2 or 3-0. Brentford away, I think they will be really up for that because of how they performed in the first game. They know they weren't good enough. They're also a different team at home, as Keith Andrews has pointed out, and I think they'll want to beat Thomas Frank at home. So I think that'll be a difficult game. I'll go for a draw in that one. Sunderland at home, I think could be Thomas Frank's get out of jail free card because Sunderland are going to have 6 players at the AFCON and they haven't been as strong away from home. I think that's or than maybe, well, it couldn't be Wolves. Could be. I think that's possibly the best game he could have after this period, Sunderland at home, because that might be the one that gets him in our couple of games. So I'll go for a 1 there. And then I think Bournemouth will do what they want this. I think Bournemouth will beat us badly again. We don't have a good record at Bournemouth recently. I think Bournemouth will be too good for us. And then I think it'll all come down to the FA Cup game against Villa. I think if he loses that'll be the end of it. I think he'll be gone after that. I think that'll be the period that they decide. Because if we're not in the Cups, we've only really got the league then. They try and push to get back into Europe. We've got no chance in the Champions League, let's be honest. So I think it's the next 6 games are going to be Thomas Frank's where he's going to be judged. And I can only really see 1-1. And that's Sunderland because they're decimated with players at the AFCON. And I'd love to be more positive. I mean, people are saying in the chat, let's hope for 7 points. I mean, a good Tottenham team there, you'd be looking for 11 or 12 points out of those 15. The fact that some are suggesting that 7 would be a decent return tells you the mess that we're in. And to be honest, Chris, as I sit here now, I'm not even sure we'll get 7. I think we'll be looking possibly in the 45 market. And if that's
Terry, no, I've told you 5. We've told you 5.
Yeah,
We're positive.
Yeah. I think if that's the case, then there needs to be a real discussion about changing the manager. And I know people want to. I'm the same as you, Chris. I would love Thomas Frank to stick 2 fingers up to me tomorrow, go out and be attacking football, and we go and beat Liverpool, and I'll say, "Well done, Thomas," and I'll be very happy for us as fans and the team. But you know, when I'm feeling the way I am, that's down to how the team's playing. So I'd love to sit here and be more positive. And say we're going to get loads of points in these games, but I'm just not feeling that at the minute. So I think 7 points at the minute would seem like a decent return, but I think that shows you where we are. But we can't. The fact that we would accept that, you know, we really, if you look at those opposition, Crystal Palace, Brentford, Sunderland, you know, Bournemouth, that's teams that you would expect to beat in most seasons. Of course, every game's difficult, but you wouldn't be going under that with no confidence. So. Let's hope for a positive Christmas, Chris, and I promise I'll come on here at the start of January and be more positive if we come back with loads of points. And I'll give Thomas Frank more time if I start to see some signs in these next few games that things are getting better. But as you can see, how Richard's sitting, he doesn't believe it's going to change over the next few games, and I'd be lying if I says I was. And I know, Chris, you're trying to be positive, but I think that's why you've got Terry Kim on, so there's 2 of you.
Guys, we anchored the show with Richard saying, "Let's get behind the team. Let's be positive." And then it was an hour and 40 minutes of Thomas
worn me down.
Absolute worst.
I don't believe you anymore, Rich. I don't believe you.
Worn me down. That's it. It's those. I'll tell you what it is those interviews from Thomas Frank. I'm like going, oh my goodness, who is this guy?
Well, the embargoed section is out at 10:30 p.m. UK time, so do check that out. I tell you what, things are bad because when Gareth and I did a fan show the other night, 4.5 hours long, this preview show, like you've just said, Terry, an hour and 45. I said this would be an hour. Isn't it interesting how when things are going well, everyone just sits there, the guests sit there and say, yeah, everything's fantastic, and they're really short answers. And when things aren't going so well, they're long answers, and we could sit here being grumpy all night, or two of you could be. So, Gareth, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Christmas, and thanks for all of your input during 2025. How will you be celebrating Christmas, and do you think you'll be smiling Saturday evening?
Well, Chris, thanks very much for having me on. It's been a great year for the podcast. I've been on so much, and look, for I don't care what anyone says, I'll remember 2025 as a positive year because I will never, ever forget that trip in Bilbao. What an unbelievable experience that was. And, that has been the positive over what's been a very miserable campaign in the league. Let's be honest. But that was the pinnacle. And and we showed how big the club was out in Bilbao. We outnumbered Man United. And that was a dream for Spurs fans. So look, I'll look back in 2025 as we had that brilliant experience out there. I've been so lucky to get to so many games, and so lucky to meet so many different people through Tottenham and through the podcast, Chris. So thanks very much. It's brilliant what you're doing. I'd like to say to all the viewers that have been watching, and look, you've a very loyal following. It's the same names, and I know me and King Huddle have had a bit of a back and forth tonight, but he's a very passionate Spurs fan, and he's one of many people on this podcast that support all the podcasts. So I want to wish all the followers and all the guests that have been on me a brilliant Christmas. Let's hope Tottenham can turn this around. We have a really positive Christmas with Tottenham and our families. But stay safe over the Christmas period, and let's pray for a miracle.
Thank you for your positive thoughts today, Gareth. And Terry, thank you so much. I'm so sorry that it's gone on this time. I did say an hour, and we've nearly done double that, so apologies. But thank you so much for all of your input during 2025. And what will you be up to in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, we're going down to
Terry.
Virginia. Yeah, going down to Virginia to visit some family. I think it's. I'm hoping we have a very, very happy Christmas. So Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy Holidays to everyone. If we do win if we do win tomorrow, I'm coming out to Ireland, to Nottingham, and I'm going to get a beer off of both you guys. All right. Okay? So but and also it's been a pleasure as always for most of the pod. But it's always great to be on with you guys. Thank you, Chris, again for everything that you've done this entire year. Let's back the team. Come on, you Spurs.
Absolutely. Well, Terry, thank you so much. And Richard, best of luck with everything you're doing. And thank you so much for all of your input. I know you've not been on too many times this year because you've been too busy running everywhere. But where can people find you, and what are you up to in the new year?
Echo the thoughts of the guys. It's obviously fantastic to be on the podcast, and all the fans kind of support Chris and his message as well. So definitely get obviously following and kind of tracking like the great work that Chris does, because he does some tireless work. So well done, Chris, the content's ace as well. I know a lot of people that some of the races that I've been to, like I say, all over the world, I get comments about this podcast, and they're always positive. It's always thoughtful, and it's always kind of provoking for the fans to actually back the team. It doesn't always happen, but it is always kind of a positive response. So well done, Chris. So I've got a busy January, February. I'll be in the Middle East running like I do, Doha and Dubai, and then I'll be on the show more after the February marathon in Dubai. So yeah, looking forward to that. I do share some of the guys' optimism around the team moving forwards. It's just really important that the team and the manager kind of show that now.
Yeah.
And don't be as festive as Terry wants us to be and give away gifts on the football pitch, please. Because that's not what I want, especially tomorrow night. And Spurs have been very forthcoming with giving presents to the other members of the team. So hopefully we have a fruitful Christmas. And again, echo Terry's Christmas wishes to everybody. And thanks for all your support.
Thank you so much, Richard, Terry, Gareth. Thank you so much for your input this evening. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for listening. And if you don't subscribe to the channel, please do. We are very, very, very close to 200,000 subscribers, which is unbelievable. So thank you so much for all of your incredible support. Have a great Christmas, but we will be back on Saturday evening after when hopefully Spurs have got 3 points against Liverpool. Fingers crossed. Have a great weekend and come on, you Spurs.